and I'm in the dugout. What does that mean? That means I am in continuous minute-to-minute contact with the inner circles of the Trump regime and those who expect the Trump regime to do things right by the state of Israel and the Jewish community in the United States, which are two different but intersecting factors. The proof is in the pudding. What has happened over the years is that the American government has lied and pretended to be a friend of Israel, but set it up for annihilation and allowed the worst sources to rise to power within the anti-Semitic community to destroy the Jewish community from within. All that stopped on noon on January 20th. For Francisco to blame Trump for an Air Force base that I know well, that the British and the US used the largest base there, although there's Djibouti as well, for a base that was created years ago, to blame Trump because he welcomed a mediator and said, "Oh, they're great guys." And then if they don't pay any attention, if they don't do what he wants to do, all of a sudden they're not his buddies. I mean, there's a huge misunderstanding. What's important is that in the first hours and days of the Trump administration, the anti-Semitic agitators on the campuses have been identified. They're in the process of being deported. I've documented that. They put the single most pro-Israel team together in the State Department and throughout the United States government. And the deep state and the CIA that he is talking about has been dismantled and is being dismantled right this minute. Thousands of people are being put out of a job, and he's got Tulsi Gabbard coming in there to take it apart. He's got Kash Patel coming in there to take the FBI down. He's got the CIA, Radcliffe, his own people are coming in there to dismantle. And so these complaints of Francisco that were relevant prior to January 20th are no longer relevant, should not be considered. And in point of fact, a guy like me says the proof is in the pudding. I'm cross-examining, as is the entire Jewish defense establishment that I'm in touch with on a minute-to-minute basis. And Francisco is actually part of some of our groups. We are cross-examining every statement, every comment, every proposal, every action. And so we're watching. And if we see something not going our way, then we're going to act. But what is happening? It's all going our way. Baruch Hashem. We've got a guy who's finally standing up for Israel and allowing Israel to stand up for itself and standing up for the Jewish community. And people who drive around the stadium should not try to tell the people in the dugout what's going on in the playing field.
The reason I don't think anything has changed is that we've seen these kinds of phenomena before. So in intelligence circles, they call this a limited hangout. A limited hangout is when you hang out to dry some revelations that are embarrassing and scandalous about misdeeds, that the U.S. government had been doing, and because these things are exposed and confessed, the public gets the impression, oh well, now we know the truth. When in fact, what they've been shown is the very tip of the iceberg. The rest of the gigantic iceberg remains submerged. And it remains submerged in part because the tip was revealed, and that convinced everyone that was the whole thing. So then nobody thinks about the entire structure that they haven't heard about. So examples of this are the church committee in the 1970s, which did expose a great many misdeeds of the CIA. But what it didn't do is reform the CIA, nor did they expose the corruption of the CIA, of the media and academia. That was suppressed. Even though it was documented by the Church Committee suppressed it. It did not become part of the official report. We saw it again in Iran-Contra. Iran-Contra once again documented not only horrible misdeeds of the U.S. government, in particular that the U.S. government was sending billions of dollars via the CIA to Iran, right? Billions of dollars in armament to Iran, the country that promises to repeat the Holocaust, right? So that was done by Reagan. That's Iran-Contra. But the Iran-Contra investigators also found that the Reagan-Bush White House, with the CIA, had created an entire system called, the acronym was SLPD. It stands for State Department Latin America Public Diplomacy or something like that. It was a cover name. And they were using that thing for corrupting the entire system, all of the media and academia. So they were back to their same old tricks. That part of the Iran-Contra congressional report was also suppressed. People didn't learn about it. And the CIA was not abolished. Nothing was really reformed. In both cases, the Church Committee and the Iran-Contra investigations, nobody went to jail. Nobody was prosecuted. The only exception is Oliver North in Iran-Contra, but even his conviction was vacated. So there was total impunity for this, zero reform. So of course the system is the same system as before. Now we're having a limited hangout, in my opinion, with USAID and with the other audits that they're doing. But mark my words, they will not abolish the CIA. And the CIA has authority in the National Security Act to do basically anything they want in secret, to spend the money of US taxpayers in secret. So once again, my prediction is people will get the impression that the system was cleaned up, but nothing really will change. And since Christopher Simpson documented that the CIA is basically a bunch of Nazis, we shouldn't expect their foreign policy to change. Now, about Trump specifically, Trump has said some things about Gaza that sound vaguely pro-Israel. It's difficult to evaluate. But even if we were to accept that everything Trump is doing in Gaza is pro-Israel, which I think is very difficult because the ceasefire that he imposed on Israel basically forced Israel to lose the war. But even if we were to concede Gaza, the greater panorama is very worrisome. Trump is very friendly with the people running Qatar, with the Al-Thani family that owns Qatar. And Qatar is Qatar is the country that attacked Israel. Qatar is Hamas's daddy. So how can it be consistent for Trump, just to give that example, I could give many more, but how can it be consistent for Trump to have an intimate alliance with Qatar, which he intends to continue? That's what he said. He received the Al-Thani family in his home in Florida. And then he said that his relationship with Qatar in his first term had been very good, and it would be even better in his second term because the Al-Thanis, according to Trump, want peace in the Middle East. So how can it be consistent for Trump to have an intimate alliance? We've got the biggest U.S. military base in the Middle East in Qatar. That's CENTCOM headquarters is Qatar. So how can that be consistent with defending Israel when it is in fact Qatar that attacked Israel? Or to give one more example, how can it be consistent with a pro-Israel position when Trump says that he doesn't want to attack Iran, he wants to have a diplomatic solution with Iran, instead of supporting Israel and joining Israel in the destruction of the terrorist infrastructure that Iran has created to destroy Israel?